What is going on, guys? It's Yoji. Welcome to the hilariously casual non-tryhard podcast, episode 12, with Project PT as always. He's like kind of my co-host person thing.
Lies.
And at least I try to get rid of him, but he's always here for some reason. I don't know why. And we also got Zizaran, who probably is way too tryhard for this podcast. So we kind of screwed that one up, but he's the only guy we could find to sort of kind of have to make some decisions. Also, look how he looks. Like, what's with his hair color and beard and crap?
Tryharding that too.
Yeah, tryharding to look really weird. Also, that shirt. Like, what the hell?
Wow, what's right? What?
I mean, I'm wearing Pokemon shirts. So that's pretty good.
Oh,
That's
gotta
tryhard.
go with the Pokemon Go.
Yeah.
That's got to be like failing miserably in numbers real fast.
I mean, today the podcast will be all about Pokemon Go. We not talk any Path of Exile or anything else, really.
Yeah.
I love
Just
Pokemon
only
Go.
Pokemon Go.
Oh, okay. So Zizaran, what's your experience in Pokemon Go? What's your meta?
Walk a lot, buy a lot of the egg containers, and just like keep walking in circles.
I'm calling bullshit on the walking. I know how much you stream.
No, seriously,
do
hold
you-
on. I wonder if I can bring
Okay.
out my stats
Okay.
here. I have like unlocked like 10K eggs.
I call it GPS spoofing. Like right
No,
now.
I don't. I've actually like I was
Fucking
gonna start-
hacks.
Yeah, no, I'm with Yoji. You change your GPS because we know how much you stream. We know how much you don't do anything but fucking streaming. You change your GPS, you fuckhead.
Wow, I would actually no, I didn't. I actually went and I met people and I talked to people, and I didn't have blue hair at the time, so they talked back.
Okay. Well,
I went up
Alright.
to the park and stuff. It was really nice. It was really good.
I haven't played the game.
I have no smartphone, so but I actually walked through Berlin with my roommate and his Pokemon Go people, and I actually saw more of Berlin just because of someone else around me playing Pokemon Go than I did the 2 years before that.
Yeah, it's really nice. Like it got me out. I hadn't walked in like a year, and then PT, then Pokemon Go came out.
Yeah, and I noticed during the Berlin meetup that you're like not used to using your legs and stuff.
Yeah.
That was really funny. Alright, so okay, back to like what we are actually here to talk about, which probably is something along the lines of Path of Exile, I would
Alright.
guess.
Possibly.
And this, because he's a fucking tryhard, he recently actually killed the Shaper as first person in Essence Hardcore League.
That's it.
Yeah.
With a blue. Don't
With
forget
blue.
blue.
Yeah, don't forget Blue.
does not get enough credit for that one. I'm sorry.
I
Exactly.
mean, whenever I played with Blue, he just fucking PK'd me by rolling super rippy maps, so...
Yeah,
that.
Blue insists on doing ripping maps. It's killed me twice.
Yep. He's like, "Nah, we can do this, like 5 damage mods, like
Yeah.
monster life, vulnerability, that's like totally cool. You just like get hit by a white mob for 90% of your life. Are you sure we can do that? Yeah, no
I
problem.
was chilling in tier 8 maps, and he's like, dude, let's do tier 12s. And I'm like, I'm 87 and I have no gear. I'm on a 5 link with no fortify. And he's like, it's fine, I'm a guardian. He logs out, and I'm not used to logging out when someone else in my party logs out, and I just like vaporized. Like, fucking great.
Yeah.
The worst thing about playing with the supports is it's so powerful. The moment they leave, you're like,
Yep.
oh right, enemies do damage. That's a thing.
Yeah. With a guardian, it's like nothing does damage, then like, you're gone. Welcome to standard.
Yeah, I noticed that when I think you died to Rigwald, and you like kind of like when Blue just like kind of like left the screen, and suddenly your HP just went dead.
Well, like the way it looks like that's a crit, because I have done it since as well, and even when solo while standing in the beam, it doesn't really do that much damage.
Yeah, he usually doesn't do
Um,
that much damage. I was
I
surprised.
think it's the same like Valspark, that if it crits, the entire thing crits.
Nice.
Do you think that's a good mechanic for the
No.
channeled skills on bosses?
No, I don't
I-
even think it's a good mechanic for things like Valspark when players cast it.
Yeah.
Okay, like let's actually here's one. It's a discussion that I've never had a opinion one side or the other. I'd always jump bosses and critical strikes.
Yeah, what Ziggy talked about when he was on the Line Ice Watch was that when he talked to GGG, that apparently a lot of bosses have a very, very high crit chance. And when I first heard that, to me that actually made a lot of sense. And I don't know why I never thought about that before that, but once I heard it, I was like, yeah, this kind of makes sense because for bosses to like usually deal enough damage to be threatening, they would have to always kill you on crit. So it would makes a lot more sense for them to crit a lot, so they are always doing threatening damage. So when they not crit, they don't do that much damage because otherwise it's almost impossible to balance around.
I would rather
oh,
I would rather up the normal damage and remove crits from bosses completely.
Yeah, basically,
so
basically.
have
that, yeah.
well, I think that's what not Ziggy was kind of saying that if there's a mechanic that would do an insane amount of damage that shouldn't crit because then it would just be completely unstoppable.
Yeah.
They just balance it around having 100% crit chance, and so it's always critting. But then Enfeeble has a huge effect on it.
Yeah, that would be that. I think that might even be one of the problems with Enfeeble being so strong in bosses and have been even stronger before the nerf. Maybe it is just that this nerfs the damage of bosses even more because it reduces the crit stats.
The thing I don't like about it is that it can like cause you to, even if you don't misplay, you can just die because you get like glanced by something. Like Power got insted by the Shaper Sam, which normally you can tank for, but
yeah, it looked like he got quite a top end roll and then a crit roll on top of that.
Yeah,
I was like,
Car's bad RNG is legendary, so why not also on boss attacks, right?
That's true. I heard he tried to like link an item once and it just disappeared.
Nice. That's pretty good.
It's not really the intention of trying to link an item.
I think Carve should also like start offering an unlinking 6-link service because you can actually unlink 6 links. I heard by using fuses on things. But I'm actually catching up. I've used so many fuses this league as well on absolute nothing happening.
I think it's most problematic, at least the boss crit mechanic, in that situation where Ziz ended up dying, where it's a channel skill.
Yeah.
Because then it will just chain fuck you. And if you don't have stun immunity, chances are you're going to get the stunned one, and the response is realize you should log out instantly that the first part was a crit, or you're dead.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think crits on bosses are a problem. And also what Ziz said with like bosses like clipping you, we all know like how bullshit the hitbox of Izaro's like wind slash sword attack is.
Yeah.
And if that one crits and clips you, it's just like one of the baddest, like worst feeling. It's just like feels so bad to die to that because you're like, I was clearly out. I had over 5k, almost 6k HP. I still died because he crit me while I was dodging the attack. What the fuck? This just feels so bad. I've been hit by that for like so much for no reason.
I sometimes feel like the effect you see, that's the only safe zone. You're supposed to stand inside that and it hits the entire rest of the screen.
Yeah. Just a very misunderstood attack.
A fight that I was watching a couple people do the attempts, and I haven't dropped the map yet to do it, was the Hydra. And I'm watching people walk through the balls and not get hit, and then walk beside the balls and get hit. And I'm just like, okay, what?
Yeah, the Hydra fights look really weird sometimes. Like, sometimes I watch people also, like, walk through the balls and just nothing happens. I was like, was that spell block and not getting stunned? But then the damage is so high, okay, maybe they were using Chayula, I don't know. And I was like, okay, randomly did not get it. And then they just, like, stand in the room, just like, half HP gone. What? I've seen exactly the same thing, and I was really surprised. Like, I'm looking forward to trying that fight, just, like, to die to some bullshit stuff, because I'm life-based. I die to that stuff.
Yeah, I know. I was watching the Chris part, especially with like CI and stuff, and I was like, I heard when he said that, oh, some devs would argue that life-based is more viable, and I was literally just smiling, and I was like, really?
Well, that's the thing,
really?
You even killed Shaper as a life-based build.
Yeah.
With a support, and then, you can do it without it, but it's a hard fight. The room for error is pretty fucking small.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like, I think a lot of people think talk like life is just not playable and you can't do endgame content with life, which is not true. It's just CI is strictly better if in almost all scenarios, and you are kind of like challenging yourself extra if you're playing life instead for many scenarios. Yeah. But it's not like it's undoable. It's just you're kind of like playing on slightly hard mode.
Let's say it this way: if the Facebreaker items were energy shield based, not armor life based, would you go CI?
Oh yeah, no, definitely. And like that's the thing, like the Guardian, like Blue definitely helped on the Shaper kill, but more in the sense that it's someone else to help manage the balls, help with calls, and like someone else that gets targeted. Yeah. Whereas if I was CI, the Guardian would have been like, say I was Blade Vortex or just even CI War Chief, it would have been near impossible to die to anything. Whereas while I'm life-based, it doesn't actually give me that much because it gives me Purity of Cold, which you can run solo, which is what I was doing on the solo attempts.
Yep.
But there's no armor damage. There's no physical damage in the Shaper fight.
And I was watching that, and you look at what a Blade Vortex build can do solo.
Yeah.
And you look at what a support build does to any CI build, and it's just like, yeah, you could do Blade Vortex solo, but you must be able to baby mode the shit out of that fight with a support and Blade Vortex.
You can get like 17k AS to just It's fine.
Really, your worry is that the support dies and you have the extended health on the boss. Because if
Yeah.
your support dies, you're like, well, we just lost.
Yeah,
Pretty
that's
much.
something I'm a bit worried about as well. Like, yes, support add a lot to any character, but they like especially Guardians add so much more to ES characters, and I think that's like just adds to the problem we already have. That hey, you could play with a support, then life based works, yeah, but CI works even better.
I
What do you
think.
mean? Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I think a good suggestion for fixing Guardians would, if they wanted to be as powerful defensively, which I think is a good thing. I think it's
Yeah.
really important that group play based things have like good positive sides.
Yeah.
But something like obviously you can't give like percentage life, like it gives percentage energy shield. But what you can do is you can give percentage damage reduction based on someone's life. So say someone has 7,000 life, they would get like 3% damage reduction or 5% damage reduction per 1,000 HP they have.
And there's actually instances of that. Well, not exactly. The Inquisitor has that mobs do less elemental damage if you're close to them.
Yeah.
The Champion has damage reduction mods. It's just the Guardian was given some pretty ridiculous party buffs.
Yeah, that's also one of the reasons I went Chieftain, because it's got, I think it's 8% damage reduction,
Yeah,
which is
Yep.
pretty big.
it's like
It's a very underrated node when people talk about the powers of Chieftain. People talk about
Yeah.
like the Fire Pen and the added flat, and I'm like, read that first totem
Yeah.
node.
Yeah, and the taunt. The taunt is so insane. Like when I was doing Minotaur, it's literally just standing there, charging you once in a while, and then standing there again. And I'm like just standing next to it, just like my totems are taunting.
yeah, it's basically when people talk about the power of decoy totem. Now every totem you have is decoy totem, and
Yep.
they also do damage, so you don't have to like lose DPS for having
they're
a decoy.
tanky.
Yeah, and they're tanky as hell, and they're immune to like fire damage if you go that route as well, which just can be crazy.
Did your support? I can't remember if your support had elemental equilibrium to boost your fire damage.
No. Probably should
okay.
have done that.
What? I assume
Not
that-
needed.
The
You have
best part
enough
is I had
DPS.
EKW in for the last stage.
You actually did? I was not sure, but because you said it in the end, I was like, you switched like I think all the phases except the last one because you were too nervous.
To be fair, there were so many pulls that I wouldn't have been able to attack with Conk Effect, so it might have been a good thing, but...
I'm sorry, I couldn't remember. The third phase, he starts at 33%?
No,
Oh, he's at
actually,
half
it's
again.
not at 100. Between each
Oh,
stage,
okay,
you
it goes-
regens while you're running there, which is why you rush.
But, okay.
So
Because
you
what I
take
was...
time, it'll be full health.
What I was wondering was the interesting thing, and I remember when you talked about ambulance number 1, by the way. When you have a fight like the Shaper fight, there was a period of time where you won the fight because you were like, we have a Slayer call. And you kept going because you kind of wanted this bonus prestige, but the fight was already done. And when you have a fight like the Shaper, the introduction of the 20% Slayer call is a very odd thing to me. What are your thoughts on the ability of just zoning and then being able to knock out a double cull?
Yeah, it is pretty powerful, and actually the guy who was doing it at the same time, which is why I was extra nervous, because there was another guy trying it at exactly the same time, and people kept spamming in my chat before I closed it. It was like, he's in the Shaper room, he's on stage 3. And he actually died at 24%. He was the Slayer.
So that was really close then.
And he was there before me, so I almost didn't get the first hardcore.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome though. It's like that
And-
that it was this
yeah.
close.
And someone else killed it solo like 20 minutes after I did.
So that was an actual race then, because like something I noticed this league is that the whole like Shaper race kind of like took over the spotlight of the usual 100 race that is happening, where everyone is like kind of excited for. But this time it felt like that a lot of people were like not really trying, or like as soon as Steel got like a significant advantage, everyone was like, Steel's not gonna die, he doesn't have to take any risks, and it kind of ended. What's your thought on that?
Sorry, repeat that last bit?
What's your thought on the
Listening to
100
podcast?
100
That's
race?
non-tryhard.
What's your thought on the whole 100 race? And like, as soon as Steel got like a significant advantage, everyone was just basically like, "Well, that's over." And
Well, I think it was not just about the 100 race as well. It was more about that people wanted to go for Shaper instead, because Shaper is a new thing. The 100 race is going to be here. Like most likely, we're not getting a new boss fight next 3 months because it's not an expansion. So there you can go. That's the way I looked at it. Like I can go all out on the 100 race next 3 months.
yeah, like, I kind of think that kind of makes sense. I definitely enjoyed watching the Shaper kill race instead, like people coming up with builds, and then at first like the opinion was like Blade Vortex is not the good way, the best way to go for it, and then suddenly some people watch like, okay, you can actually face tank a lot of mechanics if you got enough ES and stuff. So I like the whole evolution of like people's strategies and people making builds. I was pretty surprised that actually like War Chief Totems ended up being the first one to kill it.
Yeah. That's actually something I was really happy about, because I feel like I first went in with Inquisitor Flameblast, which I thought would have enough damage, but at least with this, I think I can maybe pull it off solo if I do some testing on standard, because it does have a lot of damage, but the Shaper fight really makes you feel like your build is trash. Like, I went in, and it literally 3 hits Core Malachi, right? Pre-nerf Core Malachi. And then I go into the Shaper fight, and I'm like, is it bugged? Am I using a level 1 gem? What's happening here? He's not taking damage. So it's just such an insane difference with like, even with, because I had fully buffed, it was like 200 or 300k DPS per totem. So it is a lot of damage, but you see his HP is like barely going down. You're like, what is happening?
Everyone's going to be like, oh, you're ancestral totems. You can do Shaper. Are you going to do Soul Self-Found Shaper? I'm like, I don't think you understand the pure gear requirement. I would have to find a mirrorable mace, just drop, and even then I might struggle.
Well, that's the good thing about Facebreaker. Like, my gear that I did, it was relatively cheap, because the only thing that is physical damage in the Shaper fight is the slam. So you can afford wearing an Abysses. Makes the trash pretty scary though.
Yeah, and if you get hit by the slam, you're fucked anyways.
With as a 6k life build, definitely. Yeah.
I was a little bit shocked, and me and Yoji talked about it before, that they didn't encourage the Shaper race like they encouraged the Atziri before, when it seemed to be such a nice public spectacle.
Yeah, I don't really know what happened, because they sort of started hyping it up. I saw they tweeted about like Rice's push for the Shaper, and then like they sort of stopped talking about it.
And also there was like no like any reward or anything for it. Like Atziri had the reward, even Malachi, like the Angry Weasel won the laptop thing. And it didn't even have to be a laptop, but I feel like just like getting some MTX points, like some kind of prestige, like added prestige, added like value to it would have been nice for like the first in both leagues.
Well, I mean, Carve told me he was proud of me, so I sort of feel like I won. I pretty much won Path of Exile. So.
I mean, you do definitely won the like interesting race part of this league. So I would say that. Was like the hardcore Shaper kill. That was something a lot of people were going for.
And I think it was really nice that it was done without a CI build. Not because CI, like, I think you would agree, Blade Vortex probably would have been easier.
Oh, yeah.
But it's nice that now people can be like, no, you can do it as life. It's challenging, but it's not a CI or a bust situation.
Yeah, although I would say it's a pretty unfair fight for hardcore right now. Because there's 3 things that really need to change, at least, and I've done the fight, I'd say 30, 40 times now, and I'd say there's a few things that need to change, like the safety stage. Like, if you don't know, the Shaper has a safety stage where Zana goes like, come inside my bubble of protection, you'll be safe, which is great. But the balls can go, they can go inside the bubble. That's not the worst part. You can, if they intend you to, you can either go to town or you can log out. That's the options you have when they spawn. The major problem is they can spawn inside your character. And unless you're just like some sort of fucking Jedi, you cannot see that. Which happened on one of our last tries on Standard. It spawned inside my character. And I was like, where the fuck did that come from?
You mean the vortex bubbles that they
the
follow
vortex
you around?
bubbles can spawn
I saw that in general. Like I like the idea that they can spawn while you're in the bubble, because there is some like last second reaction you can do where you can like dash out, tag the ball, and dash in before the bullet hell stuff starts.
Yeah.
But while you're like in there, I think it shouldn't spawn. I think that seems, because that can just like randomly ruin your run, and logging out is very dangerous as well, because from what I saw, the fight keeps going when you log out, like when you're gone.
Yeah.
So he will just like continue as if nothing happened, and then you enter there like 500 vortexes, 30 minions, Zana's dead. Well, there goes your run.
I think if I could, like, obviously that's one of the main things, and the 2 other things I would change is the clone, in my opinion, should have a darker beam, because he is like shaded out, so I think his attacks should be the same, which would make it easier for colorblind people as well. And I also think that there should be sound cues, so sound cues and more visual cues. So I think that would be a lot better.
When I looked at the fight, I was just like, this fight would be better if they removed all the Zana stuff. Like when you had the complaint about the bubble, it's just kind of like, that's a little bit of a gimmicky phase because of what's going to kill you. and then you see Zana's like spectral throw, just like the basic MTX. You've got Kamehameha laser beam, and then you've got haha.
To be fair, I'm actually going to disagree with that because that was probably my favorite part of the fight when the bubble ends and he instantly kamahazes.
Yeah, that's so
was
cool.
actually probably up there in like my top 5 gaming moments because I was like, oh, we're staying. Oh, what the fuck? Beam, 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 beam. And we have to
Yeah.
just jump out of the way. It was definitely one of my top 5 gaming moments.
Yeah, I love that part that he just like starts the beam like a little bit earlier than it's comfortable. Because you kind of have to dash out when the last balls fade. I love that part. And also I think I like the whole Zana mechanic that they have, because you have to kind of like, during the ad phase, you have to protect Zana, so because if she dies, she can't put up the bubble, right?
Yeah.
And I kind of like that part about it.
Yeah.
I think my main complaint would be that she just otherwise seems pretty useless, especially like the whole spectral throw part. It just looks like it's like this super epic fight. You have like a character that's like geared up to the maximum, and you're fighting this guy with like this death laser beam and just like jumps around, slams the ground with like epic explosions, and she's like pew 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 pew, and I'm like, okay, come on, like give her like something that looks a little bit cool. At least give her like GMP and the MTX or something. Like,
I'm surprised she didn't have the MTX.
but because she's like does like one sword, like what?
Yeah, she lacks the epicness of the rest of the fight.
Yeah.
But she gives the bubble, and you're like, okay, that's something. And then she's like, I'm helping. Okay, Zana. Okay.
But yeah. But overall, how do you like the Shaper fight? Because I only tried this fight like once.
I
think
love it.
PT did try it.
It's definitely like it's so much more fun than Atziri. I'd actually argue that it's easier than Uber Atziri, but with more RNG. If they fix those like 3 things I mentioned, I think it's one of the most epic things in a game. It's a lot of fun to do. But
It looks more
especially
gear intensive than Uber Atziri, though, because Uber Atziri seems easier to cheese the DPS that you need to break phase to phase, and Shaper has a beast of a health pool for that last phase.
I guess you kind of need a lot of damage to do Uber Atziri too, though, if you want to skip the stages.
It looked like Shaper has a bit more health. I haven't put my Essence Drain build into the Shaper fight yet. I thought about it, but I want to die in hardcore first before I do it in softcore.
Yeah. I mean, I like it. I just think it needs those few things changed, and it's beautiful.
All right.
I personally
Moving
was
on.
really surprised by the step up from the Guardians to the Shaper, the difficulty
Yeah.
level. That was insane. Because I tried like some of the Guardians and gave them a random try. Like a friend of mine in Standard was like, if you have an old character, you want to like raise one of my portals, like just give it a try. I was like, yeah, sure. So tried all the Guardians, tried the Shaper, and I did not do any damage to the Shaper, but I could actually damage the Guardians pretty well. Like, I could take down the Minotaur to take 1/3 of his HP away, like by normally fighting him, for example. And the Shaper was like hitting him. It's like I didn't even see like there was nothing happening on his life bar. So the step up there is like the tier 16 to Shaper is insane. Like tier 15 to tier 16 is like what you would expect, I feel, and tier 16 to Shaper is like new level, completely new league of boss.
Yeah, I do hope they tune it this league though, because something I didn't realize, and I was really worried about actually doing it myself after testing it on standard, that the Shaper is actually one of the challenges to
Yes.
complete
Yep.
40 out of 40.
Like,
So I
good
was
luck
like,
in hardcore. Yay!
yeah, that's the thing. It's a very unfair fight for hardcore now. There's a few things that can RNG you, where either you log out and rip the set, or you die.
It's kind of like Uber Atziri has never been a challenge for 40 out of 40 that I can think of. Yeah, and it is a interesting challenge to put. Like, it's actually a challenge, which is nice because some of them aren't. But it is definitely to the hardcore players who want to get the 40 out of 40. It's like, yeah, good luck with that one. Good luck on that last totem. But
Yeah.
is that a bad idea? Like, isn't that what the challenge totem is for?
Sure.
I mean, I guess like most people will just play hardcore, will just end up buying it on softcore. To be honest, that's like the problem with it, because it's kind of like
Yeah.
one like I can see personally, I can see myself taking down the 4 Guardians in hardcore. I cannot see myself taking down the Shaper realistically, because I don't really want to play a build that I think can do it. Currently, I'm playing like Flame
Yeah.
Blast. I can even like like right now I'm playing Flame Blast. I probably cannot even take down all the Guardians because Ignite Immunity kind of fucks my build over pretty hard.
I feel like the Shaper being a challenge is fine, and I love the fact that it's something really hard to do. The problem is that there are RNG things in it that is literally it should just be about if you are an amazing player, you can 100% of the time kill it. Like, you will get rewarded for your skill.
Yeah.
But there are some things there that just can't fuck you over right now, like the bubble spawning on top of you. You rip the set.
Yep.
I can agree with that. If the fight is supposed to be mechanics, and if you're risking that much, why isn't it fully rewarding that? And we'll see how that changes in the future. Because Uber Atziri and Atziri is, unless you ignore the issue with the temp chains, which wasn't an issue when it was originally designed, it's a very mechanical fight. There's not a lot of RNG. There's RNG, but you have a lot of control over it.
Yeah.
And once you have it down, the only thing that could screw you up is if you have low enough DPS. You put temp chains on her, so you have the instant storm calls. But that wasn't an existing problem when they designed the fight.
The also, like, another thing I would love to talk about the Shaper is the loot.
Okay, we've got a fight to go on eventually, but you start this.
Okay. So Uber Atziri, right, has amazing loot. Every piece you can get of Uber Atziri is useful. There's no, like, yeah, the mask, it drops a lot, but it still sells for 20 to 40 C. It is a good item.
Yeah.
Yes, it's common, and yes, it's what you're gonna end up being. Oh, fuck's sake, I got the mask again. Still good. The gloves, it's pretty shit. It really is. The sword is terrible. It's not good.
But it sells for a lot.
I disagree with the sword, but we'll go into that in a bit.
But like, if you compare it to the powerhouse that is Atziri's disfavor, like the fact that it can't deal elemental damage makes it so hard to scale. Every build I've seen, people are like, "Oh, it works. It works. I can do an okay build with this." But there's not like with the Uber Atziri's Axe where it's like, "This is a fucking powerhouse." Like,
well, first of all, it's a sword, which is, it was a sword.
That's the actual downside on the item, by the way. Like, it's not very obvious, but being a sword is actually the downside of the item, because if that thing was an axe, as it is, or like a mace, would not be like, imagine that being a coronal maul. Like, nobody would complain at all.
So I think one of the major distinctions will be the settings that you play in. Now, you play a lot with supports, and especially when you're doing the Shaper push, and supports offer a massive amount of elemental damage. And they also can offer a massive amount of pen. Now, if you want to talk about solo play, people are like, oh, you can't do elemental damage, and like 80% of your damage can be elemental damage. Okay, but are you talking about white mobs? No. Are you talking about blue mobs? No. Maybe yellow mobs might survive, and but bosses have a general baseline of about 30% elemental resists. And then on top of that, chances are you are rolling your maps yellow and they're red tiers, and if they're not red tiers, that sword should insta-fuck everything. You're going to come up commonly resists elemental equilibrium. You don't want to roll over elemental equilibrium. So it's quite easy for bosses to just hit the 75% cap. And that's where I think the weapon is not valued well when you compare, because it's like in solo play, you don't have an elemental equilibrium support for you. You don't have the extended generosity auras, and that's huge. And the disfavor is generically useful, but yeah, I don't see how and then life and area of effect.
I mean,
it's area of
I
effect.
still disagree, though. That's the thing. Like, I only play with support for like the first 2 or 3 weeks. Like, I haven't had a support for days now.
Yeah.
And even when you're solo, you kind of want to run hatred. You can run added fire. It gives you like you're forced to scale crit and poison bleed.
Okay.
And every build I've seen, they're just okay. You can do better with a 500-600 DPS any other weapon.
I mean, the DPS on that thing is like 750, I think.
Yeah.
And disfavor is like 600-ish if it's like really good, right?
608, I think it's max roll.
Yeah, so like 600-ish versus 750. So that's 25% more damage on the sword, like just implicit.
On the base,
on the base, which is basically like a more multiplier, because the base gets multiplied by everything and the multiplier multiplies everything. So it's basically like 25% more multiplier added with disfavor. And yeah, you lose hatred. That's like, realistically, you'll be running hatred. You can replace added fire without being like too shitty, but you definitely use hatred. And you definitely use Taste of Hate, which, let's be real. If you can afford one of those 2 weapons, you probably can afford a Taste of Hate as well.
Yeah.
So you lose a Taste of Hate, or at least like half of the use of a Taste of Hate, the mitigation you can get if you want, but it's not that great. Both will get Lion's Roar. Like, the thing is, like, I think the sword it's not horrible at all, and the AoE I think is great, especially when you look at like clearing. And the most useful skill for it would probably be Lacerate, maybe Sweep. You can sweep it, right? Yeah. And Cyclone. The AoE is definitely crazy useful, and having a life roll, like a big life roll on a sword, is great. I think the sword is definitely not shit by any means.
No, I agree. It's just like I was talking to Farblar who has one as well, and it's more of it's an okay to good item with the endgame boss. Like when Uber Atziri came out and the axe, it was holy shit, what the fuck barbecue amazing. Not this is really good or okay.
It's like an amazing defensive sword, in my opinion. Like, the more I think about it, because it has a life roll, it gives you more AoE, so you can stand further away from enemies if you need to. And it allows you to, because you can't run hatred, you don't have to run hatred. You're probably running vulnerability, which probably the hatred build will do as well, to be honest. But you basically have a slot for a defensive aura that you normally wouldn't have instead, and get like a little bit of extra damage from the sword. So I would say it's a strong defensive item, actually, even though it's a weapon, because it gives you more range and more life, and the ability to run an extra defensive aura that you normally wouldn't run.
Yeah. And area effect is clear speed. There's a reason why so many people like Slayer in that. I think the concern, it's not what you would hope to get off the Slayer.
Yeah.
You can run haste with the sword.
Well, you get blasphemies. That's the real thing that the sword allows you to run. Is you're not arguing like, oh, do I want to run the blasphemies? You can just straight blasphemy vulnerability. Yes, it does seem to scale with poison.
Oh, and you get shock when you go crit.
Yeah, no, it is good,
pretty great.
But it's just not what I was expecting. The flask, however, which
I would say it's comparable to Disfavor. Like, I think that sword is, in a party play, I would like really if I wanted an axe, if I need an axe, Disfavor. Else I would use the sword because it's life. But okay, go in flask.
Flask is god tier. When I saw the sword, I did have the whole like, holy shit, that's a lot of damage, and then I saw cantil element damage. I was like, okay, well, might be okay. But then I saw the flask and I was like, mind fucking blown. Yes. This like pisses on acuity.
Oh my god, that flask.
Yeah, the
and
flask
it's not even the rarest.
No, the flask is one of the common drops, right? It's like
it's second rarest. It's like the equivalent rarity of Disfavor, whereas it shits all over. Like, I would rather have the flask than 3 Disfavors.
Yeah.
It's just god tier.
I had so many people tell me that the flask isn't that good because you would want to run defensive flasks. I'm like,
it's a ruby flask. I mean, that's not bad.
Well, the hilarious thing is it scales off flask effect.
Yeah.
I know.
Like 50% flask effect, and you get an extra projectile. Yay! And the AoE is absurd.
If you're a Pathfinder, it gives you more area of effect than you can get, or it gives you essentially identical area of effect to Carcass Jack, plus Witch area of effect nodes, plus Templar area of effect nodes, and giving you 3 projectiles, which could only be obtained through both having the Scion Ascendancy and having 2 Deadeye Ascendancies. It's like...
Yeah. If you go Explosive Arrow Pathfinder and you pick up the Witch nodes and the Templar nodes, like ships in EVE Online actually start exploding because your AoE is so big, it actually goes into other games.
Yeah, I would say so as well. I would say so as well. Like, easily. That flask is just absurd. Name, by the way, is the Dying Sun, I think.
Yeah.
Praise the Sun flask.
I was so confused when I saw that. I was just like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Where's it? And then I was like, that line, when you quickly read it, you're like, oh, that's increased flask charge usage. Nope. It's reduced.
Yeah, it's actually like this is a buff.
I think it's -10 to +10.
Yeah.
Something.
I think like -10 is the best you can get. Yeah. But I mean, you can divine that thing until you get something solid, I guess. Like, it's not bad. Even if it goes to minus.
There is actually like some other really cool items out of this, this 2.4, which I think were a bit like not talked about a lot. The Witchfire Brew potion is amazing. That's something I would expect to be off a Guardian or the Shaper himself.
Yeah, and it's so common. Yeah, it drops like everywhere all the time.
I haven't found it yet. Everyone's like, it's a common drop. I'm like, come on, Witchfire Brew. Nope, come on, Witchfire Brew.
And that thing is really super cool. It costs like doesn't even cost that much, and it's just such a power boost to any character that does fizz damage basically.
Yeah, what I did was like, someone linked me Witchfire Brew Flask, and I was like, why aren't you using this? And I hadn't seen it before, and my eyes just went wide. And I didn't say anything on my stream, because sometimes when I buy something, the price has tended to increase. So I instantly bought 2, because I had 2 characters that needed to use one for 6C each.
Yeah.
And then the next day they were like 25C, and I'm like, fuck, why is this...
But they crashed down to like normal prices again. I think they just like there was like a lot of people just buying them, and then they were like, okay, no, this is too common. Maybe people were even trying to manipulate the price, but it's too common. It's just like a really common drop with immense power.
Yeah,
My favorite
I'm
thing about it
surprised.
is it's a Stibnite flask. I
Yeah.
think people really underpower the Stibnite, and now they get an excuse to try it out. So many people are just like, I'm taking way too much damage in Uber Lab, or I'm taking too much damage from these bosses. I'm like, is it blinded? Like, no, I'm not going to waste a link with the blind. I'm like, take Stibnite, put it on your thing, and laugh.
It's actually just so good. I love Stim Knight, especially for Izaro.
Yeah, for him it's really great because he doesn't hit that often. So if he misses you once, it already does help a lot. Although I got like screwed over by him again. Like I have this thing about me playing builds with like max block and a lot of evasion and a Stip Knight, and Izaro just hitting me 6 times in a row for like not giving any shits. And I'm like, come on now, you can like miss once, please. But in general, it's pretty good. Just doesn't work for me, I guess.
Yeah, and it gets, I think the aura gets affected, or does it get affected by aura range, I think?
I don't even know if it does
Well,
get
it
affected.
grants vulnerabilities, a vulnerability. I think it just scales with your normal area of effect.
Oh, okay.
So
That's
I would
pretty
assume
nice.
normal cursive area effect, and since it grants vulnerability, probably a curse area of effect, but it's not an aura.
Okay, cool. So it's not exactly like Blasphemy, but it is pretty good. I've been using it on my Cycloner, and it definitely, like, especially on the Cyclone, it lets you drop the vulnerability Blasphemy and run Hatred instead, which is massive.
Yeah. When I looked at all of the news things, I was playing like my Essence Drain, and I had so much fun with the Essence Drain character, and I'm like, Dying Sun, extra projectiles, area of effect, the boots, which, from the Shaper, I like the Shaper boots. They're not amazing, but they do a specific purpose
Yeah.
excellent well. Get a drop, like, I think a total of 12 points to just get rid of all of that. And then there's the Witchfire, which means I don't even have to invest the third Blasphemy, because who cares about curse effectiveness on vulnerability for Essence Drain? And I'm like, I look at these three items, and I'm just like, Essence Drain is like, what the hell?
Not only that, for Essence Drain this patch, you can get 30% chaos damage on all your
Oh,
jewelry.
I know, with double dips, and then you can actually get
Yeah.
first, when you're doing clear and not single target, you can drop your consuming dark and get a cast speed, attack speed dagger. And
Yep.
I'm just like, what the fuck?
I absolutely love Essence League. Like, I wish I always look for something slightly forced in a league, but
Yeah.
actually every league I've gone, oh, this looks amazing. I haven't been that keen on, and every league I've been like, this isn't gonna be fun, is it? Has been amazing. So Essence has been a lot of fun. Like I love that they've made rare super powerful again, with like the really cool, for example, the 20% more attack and cast speed gloves. It's the
Yeah.
best in
That
slot
thing is
cast
so
speed.
insane.
Yeah, it's
Isn't it
crazy.
with linked gems?
Gems
Yeah.
linked in
The-
that thing. So if you put your
yeah.
rolling blades in there, you have 20.
Oh,
Like
yeah,
you
yeah,
have a more
sorry.
multiplier to attack speed.
Yeah.
They do.
And I really like. I'm a little sad they nerfed the flame boots. I'm glad that they've kept the flame gloves
Yeah, which are still
because
crazy.
yeah, because you can't get it on like week one realistically, and then it's something you can have later on to trivialize the leveling process, which a lot of people aren't happy with. So you have the option of at least leveling to cruel fairly easy.
Essence did make the day one experience, I think, for people who are going casually, a lot nicer and smoother, but you would have raced ahead and kind of skipped everything, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
So it was nice if you don't care about the ladder push, you're getting these alk orbs that you don't feel punished for using early because you want to generate currency later to buy your shit. It was nice having these shit tier alk orbs that had the very strong mods and progressing that way.
Yeah.
So that
Well,
that was
sorry, go on.
I was just saying that was quite nice for people who didn't care about the ladder push.
Yeah, it must be amazing for self-fund as well. And what we ended up doing is I actually usually we take turns running, but I managed to get like we managed to get quite a lot of good spellcaster gear, so I ended up running everything this start, and then I would just ignore the essences unless we saw the corruption ones, which we thought were going to be a lot rarer and better. And then everyone that was just XPing in like Dread Lake or leveling areas would pick up like every essence. And then we would just be like, they would just be like, oh, we found another anger. Let's roll more fire damage for this because we were just pooling all the fire damage here. And then I would just tag the bosses, solo bosses. It worked really well.
Yeah, that sounds like really nice. I always like when the strategies people have get affected by the league mechanics, and also Essence I think does a good job in actually wanting you to fight the essence mobs and actually wanting you to get the essences. It's it's not like you will skip essences for the most part in maps, for example, because they are usually worth doing. It's also more mobs, of course, but it's also you want the essence because most of them are useful, I think.
Yeah. I actually want them to like with the essence strong boxes. I really like I thought I'd hate it. I really like that you have to click them 3 times. Even twice would be good, but I hope they bring something similar in for strong boxes. Especially, you really realize it when doing Monstrous Treasure. Like, yeah, sure, just get good and don't click it, but you're going to at some point. Like,
Yeah,
I found a Diviners the other day, instantly clicked it, and I was like, no, I didn't fucking roll it.
Oh, that's the worst. Diviners are so fun to roll.
Yep.
I was running a tier 10 when I had tier 11s unlocked, and I got I got a Cardo, and it's like the first time I've gotten a relevant Cardo in leagues, and I'm like, yes, roll it. I click it. I'm like, no.
Nice.
Did you
No
get
plus
something good?
levels. No plus levels. No quantity. I got like 1 even, and I'm just like, what?
I actually got a really good Cardo pretty early in the league, like I think like tier 6 or 7 Cardo when I was doing tier 6s and 7s, and then I rolled like plus levels and shit on it, and then I realized I can't get pluses if I don't have unlocked the maps. I just got like all tier 6s and 7s. I was like, well, nice.
I got a Zana Gorge once, and it was like tier 14 or something, no, sorry, it was like tier 12, must have been. And I was super excited because there was a Carto in it. So I didn't really mind that there was like no quantity on the map, and I managed to roll it like +1. I was so excited, clicked open, and I think it was 1 or 2 maps that dropped out, and I just stared at it for like a minute, and I was like, "You think this is a game?" So pissed.
Yeah, they play with your feelings. I actually love the Diviner strong boxes. I would argue they are maybe like borderline too rewarding, but they are the only strong boxes that I really stop and roll always when I see them. Like even in like low tier like zones or whatever, I roll them. Like if I see a Cardo in Dried Lake, I will not roll it because that's what the hell. But Diviners are the one strong box that I always roll. And I remember when Ambush was new, people would roll like a lot of strong boxes. For example, Arcanist used to be like a thing that you will always try to roll. And I've just stopped doing that completely. Like maybe I will just transmute a Arcanist if I have one on me.
Yeah.
What do you guys roll for your diviners?
6 to 8 additional items, and then I regulate it every time.
Depends for me on like zones. If I'm in a zone where it's like insane divination cards, I will try to get divination cards from this zone if possible. Other than that, just items. More divination cards is better divination cards.
Do you like the Gambler card, Yoji? Because you're gonna get the Gambler card.
I got a doctor, so I'm happy
really?
with my strat. Yeah, I also got 4 warlord cards. That was also pretty good.
I keep getting shit on by that.
I was running like Monstrous Treasure and what's it called, the area has 6 additional strong boxes, prophecies. I was running them on good maps and just happened to work out. And I got a doctor and I got some. I also got a Brittle Emperor, but they're not worth anything anymore.
They are quite exciting to get. The only thing on the side note of them is the original design of divination cards kind of seems shit now, don't they? Because there's zone specificness to them. You get so much from the diviners boxes. You get like all my cards that I've been getting are diviners boxes and Uber Labyrinths. The zone specific drops are gamblers.
Yeah, I love like whenever I'm like in the shower or whatever, like just not playing Path, I always like have random ideas pop into my head. And I think like the main thing I would want for divination cards is I want like a stacking bonus for say I save up like 10 jungle valleys. I'll get like a 5% bonus to divination cards in the same map, 10, 15, 20. Just if you can chain the map, you'll get a bigger bonus for it. See?
So if you're actually like trying to hardcore farm it, then you get a bonus.
Yeah.
The only thing that I could see...
or only maps.
Yeah, only maps.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Wouldn't that encourage players to burn themselves out rather than encouraging players to do different maps? And I'm trying to think of like what does GGG want a player to do? Now, I agree that it does achieve the goal of divination cards, but aren't you potentially risking a player of burning out and frustrating themselves rather than...
Grinding gear games, though? It is a grinding game.
Yeah, but they introduced a whole bunch of maps and new tile sets, and people aren't being like, oh, but I wanted to keep grinding my gorge.
Right, but this is something people already do when they want a divination card. I will already be doing 5 to 20, 30 residences to farm the Dappers. And
I'm doing
Dapper Prodigy is
Phantasmagoria.
something I actually think has an amazing drop rate. I think it's probably the only that and Chains That Bind are the only divination cards that have an appropriate drop rate besides the ultra rare ones like the Doctor and the Fiend, which I think also have a good drop rate.
Yeah, Dapper Prodigy is actually farmable. Like I've
Humility,
almost completely
I would add
said.
to that list.
Oh, Humility is also farmable,
Yeah.
I feel.
Yeah, there's very few though. There's
Yeah.
some that you're
Which
just
ones
like.
would we put on the list then? Like let's.
The
let's
Reign
make
of
up a
Chaos
list.
actually works, by the way. If you run a lot of castle runes and you just like randomly pick the ones up that are not too far out of your way, you will make like 6 chaos extra. I don't think
Yeah.
like what would that card be intended for otherwise than getting a few extra chaos? I think that's the intention. So I would say that works.
I think the problem with Reign of Chaos before was the high tier of the map base. That by the time you were kind of going there, you didn't really need the chaos, or well, it was still nice. But now that it's a low tier, it's an average farm tier. That card makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, I think so as well. Because once you hit tier 7s, you still care about chaos, and like if they don't drop like at the other side of the screen, like they drop at your feet, you will still click them and pick them up.
Yeah, I think they made Divine Justicar better as well, which was probably the most horrible and just worst to farm. Because in the Garena with 150% quant, I did like 15 to 20 crypts and I got 1. And
Does it still drop in crypt?
Yeah.
Because
but
I
it's a
ran
higher
20
tier now.
crypts yesterday and didn't get anything.
Apparently it is better now, but I still think it's maybe not ideal.
Yeah, but crypt is a good map to run, I feel. It's like not a bad map at all.
I had Cluffu's Deathwid kind of put me off it. That looked scary.
Yeah, or if you have a Blastoise, stay the fuck away from that boss. Like, holy crap.
Just take off your curses when you do him. He's not a hard boss. They
I
don't
just
do a lot
like
of
stay away
damage.
from him and like off screen. Can't be asked to like undo my Blastoise.
Definitely my favorite expansion though. I'm having so much fun, even with Essence League.
Yeah.
The bosses are quite nice and refreshing that they actually have a mechanic rather than an amount of life and an auto attack.
Yeah. I would agree. This is probably the most fun I've had in Path of Exile for quite some time. Probably since before 2.0 even.
Yeah.
Like things like in so much time. Just like the refreshing part of it. I wonder how long it will hold up. Like how long I will feel intrigued by this, because at some point we will know all the bosses and the tile sets.
Yeah.
But just also there just being more is like more variety while mapping, I feel.
So,
Yeah,
something I would love more of, which is something very new to me. Now, I usually skip cutscenes in games. I don't really. I'm more of a grindy player. I love Path of Exile. I'm not a cutscene kind of person, but the Shaper cutscenes were fucking cool. I almost insta-logged when it first happened. I was like, my screen's freezing. What's wrong with my... Oh, cutscene. What's this? This is new. I want more of that. I actually really liked it.
I missed the first one because I actually did log. But the second one I got. I think there are only 2, right? At least I only got 2.
Happens twice, yeah.
I'm surprised that they didn't incorporate some of the Zana lore earlier to, hint at what maps are to people and get people in, to look forward to the Shaper. They actually did add some notes for the people who care, which is I think 2 people, that actually mentions Malachi. Like when you kill Brutus, there's a note on the ground, and at the end of the note, it has the voice acting of the Malachi person, and it says Malachi. Because I remember when most people, when they're in Act 4, they're like, "Oh, the boss is Malachi. Who's that?" So
yeah, they're not doing a good job of leading up to a villain and like preparing the villain beforehand to make like this fight appear exciting before you are there. It's just like, another random Cthulhu-ish looking dude.
Which they did change in, at least Shaper, you run into him a few times.
Yep.
One of the things that I was excited.
You meet a lot of times. I just randomly remember. She's actually like a villain that you lead up to, that you like recognize, and once you finally get to her, you're like, ha, got you.
Final boss of the game, in expansion, we ran out of money expansion in the volley.
No ideas anymore. Yeah, you can just finally get her to shut up.
I'm very surprised that they keep they have good ideas. I keep what are they gonna add to the game, and I'm very happy with it.
I'm pretty curious about the whole thing that Chris hinted at in the Lionized Watchway was like there will be something they will address that is a big problem for ARPGs that they're trying.
What's your guesses?
Fix.
It hasn't been fixed. No, it's not existing in other ARPGs, and other ARPGs haven't solved this problem. Those are what we know. What do you think it is?
The main problem for most ARPGs is there's not enough currency sinks. I think they maybe have a proper currency sync, which isn't durability.
Maps were supposed to be that, but have kind of failed now that we can sustain maps so easily.
Yeah, which I don't think is a bad thing, because I'm one of the people who always hated investing a lot of currency into maps, because it just feels bad. I think we have that discussion about 5 billion times already, but I really dislike it. So I'm happy that I can now run maps. Like, I don't like that I can run maps without, like, challenging mods on them and sustain them, but I do like that I don't have to... I'm okay with having to run them challenging, but I don't want to invest all my chaos into them.
Yeah, it's awkward because you want to spend your currency in an ARPG in your gear upgrades, but that before you need to spend your currency in maps. And you still do if you're pushing ladder. You still do. But now, because it's so easy to sustain maps, especially if you're playing maps relatively casually, there is no incentive in any way, shape, or form to kill your character.
Yeah.
And so that's... it's... It almost feels like there needs to be a rework in the currency style that's being used on maps, which I was like, oh, Sextants, that's the perfect thing. It allows exalts, and they're essentially exalts that only work on maps, and then we got Sextants, and I was like, oh.
They're reworking those, though. But, I don't know. If the way I feel it, I'm actually okay with, like, they have made maps pretty easy to maintain now, even without, like, actually... There's no specific knowledge needed right now to maintain a map pool. Like, you can get RNG'd still and get terrible map pool. And I would actually, if I could change it, it would be stay the same so you can actually maintain the tier you're at with without rolling like particularly rippy maps. But if you want to progress, say you want to go from tier 11 to tier 12s, that you would be borderline forced to roll like double damage mod and maybe a curse. I don't currently like that. Oh, triple damage mod min max? Oh, that's 8% pack size. That's nice.
Yeah. And then you get like, elemental equilibrium, enfeeble, ally weakness, which is absolutely nothing. Oh, that's a good map.
Yeah.
That's like, what does it do to your build? Oh, absolutely nothing. It's just
I'm all for risk versus reward. I always feel like if you take the risk, if you risk your character, you should be appropriately rewarded. Not if you spend 40 chaos rolling 3 curse mods on your map that do nothing, you will get sick map drops.
I have no idea what you're talking about. Every time I'm rolling a map, I'm like, wow, triple elemental damage, blood magic, shocked ground, chain. Beautiful map. The best of maps.
I'm actually not seeing a picture of Blue, so he must have just been using a voice converter.
Have you run Sextants at all?
Yes. What I did was I filled up a dunes with 6 Sextants. So I used 3 white ones, 2 yellow ones. It was a lot of pack size. It was nice, but they were so rare, and I saved up for a while. This was before the double time buff. I do have a lot of them now, but I feel like they can actually be amazing. Not just, oh, here's a little extra pack size for your map. I love the one that is like, I've not had it any. There's been 2 good things I've had. Mostly I've just had like the shitty there. Here's a few extra packs. Not that exciting. What I did have was every magic item that drops is white, and all weapons are animated, which I'm guessing they're gonna have to nerf, because I got at 90 to 91, I got like 22% XP from one map. 6 times.
They give XP again.
Yeah, animated weapons give a lot of XP.
Because they nerfed that for the Tempest ones, where they were like, wait, this gives too much XP.
Yeah, at least that gave XP, because I was getting crazy XP from that.
Nice. So like increased quantity becomes increased experience gain. That's cool.
Yeah. So, and the unique ones. There's a few other things as well that are in the game right now, like the.
Have you got that spinning degen thing?
That's fun as hell.
The Malachite
it is. Yeah, I love that one.
Much, but.
Oh yeah, it's complete shit. But when I saw that, I was just like,
really cool.
I used it because it was one they were really rare, and I'm like, you know what, fuck it, I'm using a Sextant, and I used this. I'm like, this is awesome and useless.
Yeah, at least if it like some of the mods just lack a bonus to it. Like this thing makes the map harder and more interesting, but there's like no bonus attached. At least they could give you like 20% quantity, but some mods just fuck you over. It doesn't say on
20% quantity, I think.
It doesn't say on it.
10% quantity.
Okay.
10%.
But like,
on some of them, it doesn't say anything. For example, there's one like monsters and players when hit gain onslaught for 5 seconds.
I think that's because it buffs you technically.
It just fucks you. It's just basically the map has onslaught unless you one hit them. It's like, and you I don't know. Yeah, you get hit once in a while, but it's like not You're not on purpose getting hit just to gain ons. That's not
Yeah,
gonna
because
happen.
when I first got the red circles, like someone in my chat was like, "It's pretty rippy. You're in a vol map." I was like, "Oh my god!"
Well,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
the vault map is probably rippy as hell.
I was running like 6 or 7% life regen, Enduring Cry, Juggernaut, and I'm like, I'm degenning pretty good. This must be pretty rippy.
Yeah, no, it
Oh,
was definitely a lot of fun and increased the pace of the map and made me actually like worry. It was just a new mechanic I wasn't expecting.
that
And
been saying looting was a bitch. Like, fuck looting with that mod.
I guess, I mean, it's just you have to like kite them a bit and stuff. I like that. I like that it's not just the normal. I actually want them to bring back Val areas to maps or bring Val areas to maps because it
That would be
adds
interesting with
something.
the Sextant, just like
Yeah, even
contains
if
an
it's
additional
rare,
Val area.
even if it's rare, it's just I like things like I like special things. I want them to, for example, what they, in my opinion, should do is tier 6 and 7 shouldn't be drop and create only. It should just be really rare.
Should be dropping what only, sorry?
So right now, like the essences, the tier
Oh,
6
the
and tier
essence.
7, I think they should be possible to find.
Oh yeah,
Because
I was saying the corrupted essence process is useless. I don't see why they don't just make those drop, or
I
like
want
all of them
both.
spawn.
I
Both.
like the
I
Val
just want to use
essence.
Val orbs. Why can't I just use Val orbs like corrupted essences so I have more use of Val orbs?
I
I
think they wanted
mean,
it to be more restricted, more
yeah,
restricted because you find more Valops than you find corrupted essences.
I like the essence. It's just everything in a game like that. It's never a negative thing for me. Everything that is like on the same rarity as an exalt, like finding an essence of hysteria pure, would be so cool. It's like, oh, nice, an essence of hysteria. That's a good feeling in a game to get.
Yeah.
I want more of that.
I'm finding that not enough 3 mod essences or 4 mod essences are appearing.
Yeah.
Too often, like I think
I
the
don't have the
one
full
mod
mod
essence.
challenge yet, and I'm level 94.
I'm level 93. I don't have it either.
I saw someone found an essence with 4, corrupted it to 5, and 3, and that was on 1 man health,
Oh,
and
nice.
3 or 4 people couldn't kill it because it
Yeah,
had life regen and something else.
yeah, they got obscenely tanky if they get
They're
like
so
multiple
cool. They
high
make your
essence.
build feel shit. I love it. It's
Yeah.
actually really fun.
My problem is that I'm only finding like 1 to 2 tiers so frequently. And it's so rare to see the third tier that I'm like, well, I know Essence can do something. Like I know these Essence mobs can have balls, but where are they?
Something I want to give them a big props for, which is one of the main things I felt was missing from Talisman, was like when you got the Talismans, you had never a chance of 5 whites turning into a blue or a rare. At least now when you're in a group, you have a chance of like random essences popping out. You can't do it solo. Like you can only get the ones that it says on it when you're solo, but at least in a group, that's there, which I think is
Yeah.
amazing.
I think that's pretty cool as well. I think there's like a chance per party member to get an extra random essence, which is pretty cool.
The new bases dropping off Rogue Exiles I thought was such a nice touch. Like it's such a subtle, flavorful, nice touch to do that.
Yep.
I'm actually finding myself running rolling anarchy on higher maps sometimes because like
Yeah.
especially if I got the wealthy exile prophecy that it makes exile just drop only rares. I'm like, I could just run a tier 15, put some exiles on, get like crap ton of really high bases, all rare. That sounds cool. I do that and then just or like try to roll 2 exiles on it as well.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. I like that a lot.
I'd say the only thing I'm disappointed with in this expansion is that Zana's maps still doesn't have a Zana map mod on them.
What?
That would be my
Oh
favorite
yeah.
thing. You open
I,
a random Zana map and it's like domination.
oh yeah, that would be interesting.
Even ones that aren't like say it could spawn like regardless of what the active league mods are, say it could spawn the Nemesis map. And it actually lets you know under like the map mods like this is Nemesis. That's something you'd be able to sell to someone. It's like I have a Nemesis map. Do you want to buy them?
Anyone had some leather belts? Yeah,
They
that's really
did
cool.
well when they changed Zana because they were like, oh, we're keep adding an expansion. There's always more Zana mods, and so we need to rework Zana. I didn't like their solution. I'm like, isn't this the same problem? And now you're just rotating disappointment. They're like, yeah, but it's for like long term like longevity. I'm like, sure, from the perspective of people who are playing for a year, they might rotate, but that's a pretty specific demographic then you're looking at. Like, oh yeah, I'm going to be playing Path of Exile for a year, so I get this one. Yes, it encourages people to play when maybe there's like the headhunters, but then there's the divination cards, so you can get the headhunters. And I'm just kind of like, I don't think it solved the problem at all. Like, I agree that there was a problem that was expanding as you do more and more content, but really? Eh.
Yeah.
I kind of can see why, like, what the idea behind it is, where they're like, yeah, if we rotate the mods, like the Zana map modding meta, every, like, what you want to roll on
Yeah.
your maps changes every league. So the league, like, the mapping experience is slightly different every league. I can see that as a possible upside. I'm not sure if it outweighs, like, the availability.
They do, like, I'm surprised there
Oh,
wasn't
really,
like a
no.
lottery. Like, they're pay 1 chaos to lottery one of them or something like that.
That would be cool.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Like,
And then make the lottery get one of the ones that aren't listed.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's just I'm so in favor of like random things. That's my
Yep.
favorite part about this game.
God,
Which
you
is
have good
also
RNG, get out!
right,
Mister,
but like
twice in
there's
a
also,
row, triple tier 1 Val Regalias for fuck's sakes
yeah,
with
that's
open
I might as
suffixes.
well
Yeah, banned.
Like, what? I'm waiting for you to, like, finally decide, like, hey
apologize.
guys, I'm gonna do some essence crafting. Let's see what I can get with the top tier ones. Boom. Fucking
Did you see that
perfect.
already? Didn't you see the axe?
I saw, no, I haven't seen the X.
I did 3 of the +2 weapon range essences on a Val axe, and I got a 520 DPS +2 weapon range axe.
Why didn't you use the +3 weapon range X? Just scrap
Because
it.
I only had 3, and
Yeah, so,
realistically,
no, that, don't care. It's only +2, not good enough.
Yeah, it's like, what is this shitty item? It's worse than Disfavor, so it's basically, like, useless.
it is worse than Disfavor, but it was pretty. That was on day 3, or 4.
At day 3, that's pretty crazy.
I was just staring at it and like, how did these things happen?
Anyone
I-
playing Cyclone has too much currency?
I've
Yeah,
used
it's
so many zeals and so much chaos on my Chrono Mall, and I can't get the. I got a 470, but I'm trying to get a.
yeah.
trying to
I
get that.
actually want because, for example, I loved the change that they made things like Shavs and Mjolnir more common,
Yeah,
but at the same time, I miss the feeling of holy fuck, I found a Shavs. I'm set for the league. I love the option of something like that being there, and right now that's only a mirror.
I kind of agree with that in both ways because I don't like that someone could not play low life because it's like, haha, you can't know life this.
Yeah.
Get fucked. You can't do Shav's low life at the time, Bringer of Rain, Soul Taker.
But that's why I want that same feeling just on things that are fucking amazing, but not build enabling.
Yeah.
So,
Skyfall
say
is a
for
good
example,
I feel of that.
Hmm?
Isn't Skyfall a good example of that? Because it makes a lot of builds
yes,
way better, but nobody needs it to play.
yes, and there are options, and yeah, sure, Solaris Larica is an option to Shaps, but no,
Nah,
not really. It's
no,
not.
it's not.
I played with Solaris Lorica on my Essence Drain build. I could complete tier 15 content with a 5-link Solaris Lorica. However, and here's my bitch, like I think Solaris Lorica is a lot better than people think. Coloring Solaris Lorica
Yeah,
costs more than you might as well buy the fucking Shavs, and that's the problem with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I just love rare items. That's definitely my favorite thing. I was talking about Havoc with this, and I very much disagreed with him when he said he wanted mirrors to be a lot more common. Um, and I was like, why though? That's terrible. I love rare items. But then it sort of made sense because they don't really get used at all, and it causes, especially in the leagues, mirrors don't get used. People will usually buy them and rip them to standard. Like the triple T1 ES chest, like I obviously you don't have that much currency to craft an actually perfect item on a league. So that was as close to perfect as I was able to get it, and nobody mirrored it. One guy was considering it, and then he was like, "No, I'm just gonna rip it to standard."
So
But on the other hand, like if let's say I found a mirror, I don't play standard. I wouldn't have gained absolutely nothing from ripping it to standard because I just don't play that league like ever, except
Yeah.
for like testing stuff maybe. So I don't really see like why wouldn't I just like buy mirror service for a godly item? I don't really see why I would not do that.
But it's so rare, and generally, people who find it will generally do, I can either mirror something, get one amazing item, or I can sell it and get 2 or 3 characters, because somebody else will buy it and flip it over for double or triple the price on standard.
And, yeah, I think that's
issue-
a good reasoning. I can see myself selling the mirror, but I cannot see like ripping to standard for me is not an option.
Yeah.
I would see a larger issue is not necessarily the mirror, but we need to talk about one of the solutions or one of the problems that was brought up with Essence, and this is crafting. Who uses meaningful chaos crafting, exalt crafting, a fairly small demographic? And the longer you get in the league, the less value. Like, it's essentially almost always better to just go on PoE trade and find something.
Mhm.
You're lottering it, and it's fun to lottery it, but unless there is not an upgrade, PoE trade is the better way.
Yeah.
What you like a baseline response, and I was actually talking about this on the stream. If you drastically increased the drop rate of Exalt, Chaos, Alch, so that people could actually craft, that would be good. The downside then is well, you're going to have insane power creep. You know, these tier 1 things aren't going to be as meaningful. In which case it's like, okay, if you proportionately increase the amount of not necessarily shit mods that could roll, but let's say quality of life mods, add in endurance charge endurance charge duration, add in power charge duration, add in weird mods like hybrid movement speed, attack speed that could be found on low values. But you need to put in a ton of mods so the tier 1s are appropriately as rare, and you can't just like, oh wow, everybody gets exalts. Then people could craft and YOLO exalt and be like, oh, didn't get anything, but you don't feel like this is everyone's experience. I've never YOLO exalted. Let's YOLO exalt. I am never doing that again.
Yeah. Yep. I think essences are the actual solution, but I want them to be heavier weighted.
Elaborate.
So, the big change they did with daggers now is that if you roll a spell damage mod on a dagger, it's got more chance to roll other spell damage mods, right?
Yes.
I want essences to be even heavier weighted. That say I use it on a Valax and it rolls elemental damage. It has a really big chance to roll attack speed and more elemental damage. Or if I use the Contempt, it has a really big chance to roll fizz damage.
Mm-hmm.
I want really heavy weighting on the essences.
That would that would make crafting more desirable to do because you have a higher chance to getting something out of it, but it would also like flood the market with really good axes, for example, or like whatever items.
I guess, but not everybody wants to trade. A lot of people want to play, like, for example, PT plays Self-Fan. A lot of people want to do that. Like, I use the market every day, and I will always, like, min-max PoE trade with setting up whoops and stuff like that, but that's not for everyone. Just because I play that way doesn't mean everyone wants to. That's why I'd rather have more crafting being more viable and actually being a crafter in the game being more viable.
The only sorry, I was going to say
yeah, you could go ahead.
I was going to say that if you don't mitigate the power of items when you enhance the crafting tools, which could be done through essences, you're going to make more and more items that just drop as is, not sellable, and more items that are crafted, like it inflates. This will make it so that it'll just cause the exact same thing to happen at a higher tier, and you run the risk that people don't even need good items anymore to clear content. So then crafting is completely useless because you've scaled up the gear so well. You know, if I could get everything I need as solo self-found to a point where I could just kill Shaper, right? Because of these craft improvements, because as you said, people don't want to trade. Congratulations, why even trade? Because everybody can do it as solo self-found in a reasonable amount of time and kill Shaper. So you've lost even now the purpose of trading. That's what
actually
you risk.
Kind of like the same point I wanted to make, because in Diablo 3 right now, there's no trading, and it's really easy to get items just by RNGing stuff. And that would definitely be a step in that direction, which I like. I mean, we are far from the point, like a point where trading doesn't have enough advantages. Let's be real. But
oh yeah, trade's good.
But I don't want it to be, as you said, in a way where I can get self-craft items so easily that I don't feel like I need to trade anymore. Even though I could maybe get even better items from trading, because I would, because the average item is just way better now and way cheaper. I would still I kind of feel like if I want to like get a shortcut to better gear, trading is still like a good option.
Yeah, for sure. It's just, for example, the axe I made. If they have the exact same weighting as Chaos Orbs, and I've used, like, I play around at the end of leagues, on hardcore and softcore, and I played around a lot in Darkshine with the full like Alkin Chaos
Yep.
duels. If they have the same weighting on the essences, that is going to be 1 in at least 500 essences to make something just that good. Because yeah, with alt wriggling, you get 3 to 10,000 alterations before you hit a tyrannical or merciless. Sometimes,
But
on average.
good is supposed to be rare.
Right, but it's not obtainable for the majority of the players by actually using essences then. And if it's unobtainable, then it's not really the point.
Well, then this is where we get to a very interesting discussion because then we can make the exact same discussion about six links. We can make the exact same discussion about tier 16s. We can make the exact same discussion about 20 gems.
They already have good rarity though.
For me, for example, 6 links are fucking unobtainable. I, on average, per league that I've played, spend 2,000 fusings, don't get a 6 link, and the league is over. That's not even a joke. That happened to me, like, every other league I decide, I could give that a shot again. I spent about 2,000 fusings, decide to not go Vorici, because for me the chance, like, if I'm, okay, I want to do Vorici. Whenever I decide I want to do Vorici, I bought a 6 link with Vorici once. But it feels bad, because to me, as someone who played a lot of card games, my decision-making process like this. Whatever has on average the lower, like the better chance for the better return is the choice. That is the correct choice to me, not hindsight.
I guess
Vorici is more expensive on average than fusing, so I will always fuse and never get it.
Yeah.
And yes, I'm a statistical outlier, but holy shit, that's like it's just bad. It just feels bad. I even quit Path of Exile for a league because of that.
No, like I get that. It's just okay, I guess what I really mean, not maybe every essence being weighted, but especially the tier 6s or maybe only the tier 7s. Because even if you make them have heavier weighting, I can't see myself using more than 100 tier 7s this entire league. So far, I've used 2.
Okay, if that's the point you're making, I can agree with that. It does seem, when we look at the rarity of them, especially how easily I run a red map and I'll see a Whispering and I'm like, well, fuck you, Mr. Whispering Essence.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's always annoying. I mean, I still pick it up, but it's just like, that doesn't really add anything to any of my essence stacking.
Yeah, I can see that tier 5 and 6 essences might not need any special weighting, but tier 7, they are rare. The chance of actually hitting something good on less than 100 chaos is very small. So if it's that rare, I mean, I really can't see myself getting more than 100.
Well, then, like what I see, and they are tier 0 mods, though, and so my concern is maybe we should look at the problem slightly differently. Just make tier 6s able to spawn, like we discussed earlier. And if the tier 6s can spawn, that's going to drastically increase the population of tier 7s, and then we're more rewarded, we get to fight harder, and then you can potentially corrupt the tier 6 into a tier 7 using the Essence of Corruption. And that might be a more elegant solution without potentially just breaking crafting.
Yeah, it's just I feel like when I'm playing so much, like I'm a very statistical anomaly. I am literally the 0.1% in playtime. And if I don't think I can get
add in a couple more zeros than that.
yeah, if I can't get, I'm assuming to get between 10 to 50 tier 7s this league, that means the average player will get between 1 and 10. That's crazy for like that means 5% of casual players will actually hit something good with a tier 7 essence.
I agree with that. And then you talk about the corrupted, like what I dislike about the essences is the fear is an excellent essence, and I think everyone is kind of on board that the fear essence was wonderfully designed. It gives you stats.
One?
Yes.
Yep, very good.
Everybody likes getting maybe like the stats on a new items, but they put all of the interesting things on a hilarious tier that is very rare. I found 5 of the super tier, whatever the high or the levels, because there's tiers and tiers.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I've gotten 5 of them. I haven't used any yet because I'm not going to get anything with them. But they had the opportunity of making rares interesting by giving us those interesting mods, but instead they put very, very powerful mods that do deserve to be rare, but they put them all in these 4 areas that are so hilariously unobtainable. And then we need to RNG craft them. So I was kind of like, maybe they needed to lower the values and shift things to actually make more interesting rares rather than just efficient alks.
Yep. I mean, I definitely agree that there needs to, like, that using essences on average, I think is not worth. like worth it to actually use them. That's why I sell them, because
Yeah.
I think on average I will get more chaos from. Like I sell them for like 7 to 10 chaos, and that's probably more than I will get out of it if I just use it on on a high base on average.
I feel like the physical builds got a little fucked over as well. Like I feel like
Oh, yeah, they
the
did.
spell ones are all really good. Like the flatted spells, the crit, which I believe is higher than tier 1, right?
Yes.
Well, what happened with contempt? That's not higher than flaring.
Yeah. It is just flaring, right?
No, it
I
isn't.
don't even think it's flaring.
tier 2.
It's
Yeah,
tier
it's
two.
tier 2.
What?
Which is crazy because not only does WoW and everything else have tier 0,
Yeah.
contempt didn't even get to tier 1. I was like, what happened here?
By the way, a lot of people also forget that you can use the granite recipe to go to tempered.
Yeah, you can get tempered just basically by
Yeah,
using
just
granites.
by using granites. So congratulations, guys, granite recipe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Like, sure, there's a technically love to crit melee because of the crit ring, because of the crit
yeah.
multi, but I'm playing RT melee, and I'm like, so on weapons I use Zeal,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but Zeal is also great on boots,
Yeah.
and Zeal is so it's just like, oh no.
Yeah, Zeal is one of
Someone
those
brought
essence
up-
you always want on everything.
Someone brought up in chat though, it is really good on things that aren't weapon like rings. They are actually amazing on rings, which I do love. It's just for weapons it is.
Yeah, we were not talking that the contempt essence was bad. We were saying that RT melee,
Yeah.
like melee once again got the shaft in comparison to caster. Melee, get it tempered. Casters, you want cast speed on a dagger? Here you go. What?
Well, I mean, at least they are balancing pretty well with, for example, like Valspark's got nerfed twice in a row now, so it's completely useless if you compare it to things like Glacial Hammer, which got a massive buff.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. When I die, the next build is Glacial Hammer, and I'm just gonna like take my dick out on the keyboard and slam it down while I face tank Shaper with my Glacial Hammer build, because that is the TV meta.
Yep. Yep. Can I recommend you a TV show or two? That would be.
Oh, perfect. I recommend all you want.
I think if I could ever ask a dev any question, it was something like Heavy Strike got buffed by 5%, right? And Glacial Hammer by 6.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Ground Slam by 15 though.
Right.
Because
but
Ground
just-
Slam's obviously was worse than Heavy Strike.
And Monster Life
I
got buffed.
Why are those arbitrary numbers? It really makes me super curious.
I think they
why
did a
those
lot
numbers?
of testing, and they probably made like at least like 100 different heavy strike characters, like with all classes, all ascendancies, tried it out, played crit, non-crit, with the jewel, without the jewel, maces, axes, like all the things, and then they made all these characters and like watched the damage numbers, and after like crunching all the numbers, doing like spreadsheet upon spreadsheet of statistics, they decided they put their magical buff nerf formula, and like after like putting all the values in, it just gave out 6%, and they were like, yeah, that's perfect. That's how buffing and nerfing works.
Oh yeah.
I wish
good.
I believed that. I don't.
What are you saying? You doubt the balance process of GGG at times?
Yes.
I mean, the alternative would be someone just meant like Glacial Hammer is not good.
Are you
6%
saying
should do.
that Dying Sun is not balanced?
I also don't think games should be balanced. But and I think it's very hard for people developing games to be in touch with your game, which I feel like GDD does better than most other games I've played, to be fair.
Yes.
But
But
I know, I'm just super curious about the 6%. I'm just, why 5
Yeah, how
and
did that
6%?
happen?
okay.
Why not 12%? That's my question.
And then Fireball 50%. Okay. Why was Glacial Hammer at such a risk at a 50% buff?
Yeah, I think if like Glacial Hammer got a 50% buff, it would just still not be used.
I think it would. I actually
Maybe for
no,
single
I do actually
target.
see the danger.
Maybe if
of
single
something
target,
like that
right?
being a single target skill when you're
Yeah.
putting in boss fights. Because if you give it that much damage, it has maybe a chance of freezing bosses if you do it correctly.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So I see the point in not giving Glacial Hammer a 50% buff. I'm just very curious why
6%?
the 5 and 6% buff. Like, what was so specific?
I mean, why not
Okay,
10% of 15 or whatever? That's true.
So, you say like games shouldn't be balanced,
Yes.
which is interesting. You obviously don't mean that to an absolute extreme.
No. But
Okay, so
I'm
then
fine with some. I actually love the way DDD do things at the moment, at least for some things, where they'll rotate the meta, regardless of, for example, Cyclone wasn't overpowered in any way, but there were a lot of people playing them, and GDD wanted to sort of nudge people in a different direction, so they gave Cyclone a nerf. Now, we maybe didn't realize at the time, but there were ways to bypass the nerf. For example, the way I play my Cyclone is I stack so much attack speed that the initial hit being 50% less damage doesn't matter. But they nerf things regardless of if it's super OP or not to change things.
well, if they're nerfing things based off just its popularity, aren't you then just creating a whack-a-mole meta where it's like, this is tier 2, that's tier 1. Wow, who would have guessed Blade Vortex was good at Shaper and played meta? I don't know. Everybody?
Yeah. It's
So
kind of
I-
like how Pathfinder rose up to the top after it's been like pretty close to, like, basically once the tier 1 gets nerfed, then they like the next one steps up. Then the tier 1 gets nerfed, the next one steps up, and that's kind of like what happened this patch around. I think
It's just the way I look at it. It's not a PvP game. Like it doesn't really matter that much if one skill, for example, Valspark. If Valspark crushes Val Fireball, it doesn't really matter because I'm not gonna come with my Valspark character and kill PT's character and take all his loot.
But if
But
we are
you
partying, you,
are-
might kill
you
all
are-
mobs, and I might not do anything at all because I'm Earthquake and I can only kill mobs around my character, while you kill mobs all around the map. And
You can run after and pick
would
up
be-
loot. You're still useful.
But
Would be
you
s-
are going to clear at a
Fuck you.
pace that allows you to generate currency. The game trades, and guess what? Not everyone can find their shavs, which means they have to base it on how many people find shavs and the rate that they can find shavs. Then people want divination cards to increase the drop rate, but a person that can clear faster can get more divination cards per period of time, and thus it must be a balance around the most abusable scenario. Because if you balance the divination cards of someone who can clear the map in 2 minutes, and then somebody is taking a Valspark build, it's a low tier map, and he's clearing it in 30 seconds, you have to balance the divination card, especially if it's a good divination card, based off that person.
I
So-
disagree.
Well, that's
If
what they're doing, though.
You can't balance the game after Havoc and people that have 18 hours a day to play. You have to balance it after, and you
So
can't
that's
do
why
it after the
Headhunters is
people.
common?
You can't balance it after the people who play 2 hours a day either. You have to balance it around the above average players. You have to balance it after players who play maybe between 4 to 8 hours a day. If you balance at either extreme, you'll just fuck everything.
But you said balance doesn't matter, and now you're saying balance fucks everything.
Yeah, okay, that was sort of contradictory. I'm just saying, no, I mean like a powerful skill doesn't have to be balanced.
Okay,
But
but
I kind of see a problem where when you like, I can see the argument of like someone else playing a build that, I don't know, grinds Stride Lake with advanced spark speed doesn't ruin my Cyclone experience. I can see that being an argument. But at the same time, once I get to the point where I'm a player that looks at what other people play, I can feel forced to play other builds because I look at my Cyclone experience and I'm like, but I could do this instead. And so I always feel forced to play something more powerful. I can definitely see that being not a feeling that I like feeling forced to play something powerful all the time. Also,
and
chat with
you
full
are.
lol.
If you want to do Shaper, you want to get your Dying Sun. Are you doing it with Glacial Hammer? Are you saying that they balanced the Shaper fight, balanced, around my capacity to play Glacial Hammer? And I think, in general, maybe there's a misnomer when people use balance. Nobody wants Glacial Hammer to clear like pre-nerfed Valspark, because that doesn't even make sense.
Yeah.
But can we all agree that Glacial Hammer probably needs to be a bit better?
Yeah.
So we're saying now that the balance of Glacial Hammer is not correct. So what then let's look at the question. Like, I think there's poor words that are used. And I didn't mean to call out Ziz and create that logical flaw that he was like, oh whoops. What
Well,
is
I was talking
too
about
strong and what is too weak? Yeah, you looked at a very specific spectrum. That's the problem. Bad Ziz. Bad Ziz. What is too strong? What is too weak? That's the question.
I think a big issue right now is every skill doesn't have to be good. Some skills can be gateway skills. Let's say cleave. at least, yeah, you can make it endgame viable, but generally other skills are going to be better.
Yeah.
And if they do want to make them viable, for example, Ice Spear, at least for me and the way I play the game, it's not about how much damage Ice Spear does, it's about how Ice Spear is mechanically. So if they want to make skills like that, or for example, if they want to make Glacial Hammer viable for me, it's not about the damage, it's about the mechanic. So the mechanic would need to change, which is something especially I'm unhappy about with Flame Dash. The mechanic of Flame Dash, at least in my opinion, needs to change at level 15 to 17 to have no charges, which I think is, I love dynamic things in games, which is something I feel like is missing ever since Tempest. Where, for example, say Glacial Hammer, once it gets level 15, gets something that chains onto other mobs or affects something else in a different way. It's just mechanically, skills can change at a certain level and they'll be really interesting.
Yeah, they started to add that like more recently, where Lacerate gains some AoE over time, like more bounces for Magma after you gain levels, and chains for Arc and stuff.
But that's just increasing the current mechanic of the skill. I'm talking about adding a different mechanic at a certain level.
Yeah, I think like they could maybe try to experiment with that. So like you start off with a very simple, basic, like noob-friendly beginner's gateway skill, and then it just changes into something nice. I would love to see that. I think that is a pretty nice idea. Overall.
One of the things that I find odd is like when we talked about like Ice Spear. Like Ice Spear can have a decent amount of damage, but it's mechanically lacking, like Zizaran said. But if you have a skill that is just perfectly not mechanically lacking, so if we talk about like what Earthquake can do, or what like Flame Blast can do, or what Blade Vortex, you can argue maybe the range or the spread of damage could be higher. But these skills have either too small of a downside, and how do you over-specialize in these skills that do everything properly?
Yeah, it just depends if they want some skills to just be for leveling or just have a unique use. Or if they want things to be more comparable and more leveled. I mean, if I was going to change Ice Bear, for example, personally, to be more on the level of other skills, I would do a level 15. The Ice Bear splits out into different explosions and explodes around the explosion. So with you have GMP, it would go like into like a 5-star formation, and then when it gets to a certain range based on your projectile speed, it spreads out again, and then you have like an AoE skill.
It was like full Haas mode, like around him.
Sort of, yeah.
Would make it interesting, yeah. I can agree. Some of the skills are just a bit bland.
Yeah, I mean, projectile flies in a straight line and does damage is not very interesting skill design. And yes, you need to have one of them or maybe two of them in your skill assortment. But I feel like we have like Heavy Strike and Glacial Hammer, for example. They don't feel different when you use them. Yes, one of them does cold damage, one of them doesn't, but it still feels like you click a mob and you whack them, and that's all that happens. Feeling like from the feeling of mechanical feeling of the skill.
I'm curious at what they're going to do with Namelock and when they're going to do that with Namelock.
Yeah.
Because there will be happening. I cannot see Namelock staying in the game as it is right now. Even what Chris said on the other podcast was where they thought about adding melee splash to all name locking skills. That would be like one thing, but I don't feel it would actually solve anything. It would just be like save one link and like band-aid fix number 2, but just like make it like Ice Crash where you can ground target them. That would maybe help.
For sure. Someone also brought up threshold jewels. Now there are 2 mechanics in Path of Exile. I'm sorry. I would apologize for this, because that is the warband mechanic, where it is you need to identify blue helmets, which is not explained to new players anywhere. If I started the game today, started playing, I saw warband, there is no reason for me to hold alt down and identify red blade helmets at all. There is not.
That's my next video guide. Is actually that one. I'm working on it.
I actually ran sulfur waste maps, and I was like, wait, what do the cold warbands drop again? Because I know the red blade helmet, I don't know the other ones. I think the one that had boots and the other
boots
ones.
And gloves, yeah.
Yeah, but it was like which one was boots, which one was gloves, which ones do I have to pick up? And I tried to Google it. It actually took me some time to find it out, even though I know where to look. I was like, how is anyone ever supposed to be going to find that out? And I actually don't know because I gave up. I didn't give a shit. Now.
The cold ones are boots
Gloves?
and
Boots? Okay.
oh no, the thunder is gloves. Boots are cannot be frozen.
Yeah, that's it. Which
yeah.
is it's just I'm all for like a difficult game where you do need to do research yourself, but
You
I
need
want the
to
research
know
to be
you
in-game.
need to do the research though. That's the thing. You need to know there's
Yeah.
something you need to look up. Not like, oh yeah, you know how you ignore every single blue in the entire game? Yeah, if you run one map called the Beacon and you kill the bosses, identify the blue helmets that only drop off those bosses, but not the rare helmets, because rare helmets can't get the mod base.
Actually, a bit sad about that. I feel like the rare helmets should, because it's so rare.
Yeah, I mean, why not? There's like, I mean, yeah, they want like to incorporate crafting more, whatever, like crafting of blues up to like whatever. But why not just rares as well? I'd be happy. Like maybe if I can hit like a life roll and a resist roll, I'd be happy with a red blade helmet. I'm totally using that.
Or yeah, it is one of those just completely hidden mechanics. I agree.
Yeah, I mean, and it is obviously in every game there's going to be something you don't like, which is not a lot in this game for me. But whenever I see warbands, I'm just shaking my head like that's unfortunate. Why did this happen?
And you just even in the Warbands League or when we had the combined, I had to repeat almost like with the first time we had the flashback. Pretty much every 30 minutes, people are like, "Why are you killing these mobs? Why are you leaving blue helms?" And I'm just like, "Red blade helms, they're amazing."
I didn't know about it. Because I basically I played in Tempest and I didn't play the warband mechanic, and before then I hadn't played a lot.
Did you not play
So
the flashback afterwards?
yes, I was about to say that's basically my first proper league.
Okay.
Tempest was like the first league I got a character above 90, and then I started playing properly in 1-1 hardcore. And yeah, I was streaming, but mostly I didn't have a lot of viewers back then either, so I didn't pick up any red blade item pretty much that entire league until someone's like, "Why aren't you picking up red blades?" And I was like, "Explain this mechanic to me. That's interesting." I thought people were joking as well. I thought I was getting trolled.
I mean, you might as well have been, because I picked up every single red blade helmet in that league. I did not find any, because they are also, aside from being impossible to find even if you know they're there, they're also impossibly rare. Woo!
I've had 3 ever, no.
I had one. I had one once.
I'm at 9. I found one in
But
Prophecy.
you like farmed them like crazy.
I farmed them because I just saw these. I'm like, I love this helm. This is the best thing ever. Because that's going back to crafting and those mods that make rare special. That is a special item. That's exactly how an item needs to be special.
Yep.
They should just like make them drop with like identified and with a big fat frame or arrows pointing to, like, just make it like the default loot filter thing of them is like identified and like with a border frame, something related, like red for red blades and blue for the whatever the cold ones. I don't know. I don't even care about the colors. A big frame.
I think the good thing is though that most of the flaws that we can tell and that most people like, sure, I'm sure some people like them, maybe, but there are fixes for these things. It's fixable.
That's one thing when you just said that you don't like, there's not a lot that you don't like about Path of Exile. For me, there's like tons of very tiny things that I really think are really bad about the game, but it's just like tiny things. So it doesn't matter to me to a point where I'm like, this breaks the game for me, so I won't play it. But it's like so many tiny things that like, this would be like, I don't know, 5 minutes spent thinking about it fixed, and it could be fixed, and then I don't know how long it takes to implement, but it can't be that difficult for some of these things. And I just feel like the list is so big that if someone just like took all of that and just like applied small fixes to all of these things, the game would be like 20% better just with all that shit gone. And I'm not talking about like all this big stuff that takes like lots of time, like putting in a proper MTX system. That's annoying as hell already. But just like these small things, like highlighting red blade helmets, or I don't know, just like giving us like a little bit better UI for some of the like tiny things, just like making things a bit more visible.
I guess that comes down to often also how much do you want to reward knowledge or spoon thing. Like an example is you could make it that by default an eye level 84 armor that is a top tier base, you could just default it that they have a special border. That's an indicator. You could create in-game indicators, and even if they don't know, it would just be like, hey, what's that? Something different happened. I should look it up. How much
Yeah,
comes
no,
down to,
I agree. That's very interesting as well because I'm I'm sort of I'm sort of caught between there because I'm against everything being spoon-fed and I love rewarding knowledge. For example, if you look at I love the way the map system was before where it was really hard if you were a new player, if you didn't understand how or what was good to roll on maps, for example, pack size. A lot of people would have rolled quantity instead of pack size. I love stuff like that, but I also think there should be a way that is, if you're looking for it, you can obtain the knowledge, especially in game, without either talking to other players, being explained it, or having to go to a wiki and reading up about it. I want there to be in-game ways, either through the lore or something else, where players have the option of learning these things to become more knowledgeable.
yeah. I think a lot of people are just like some form of an in-game wiki or index or something to check things.
I'm very surprised PoE trade is not in-game yet.
I mean, I'm pretty okay with like a lot of things not being explained in the game, like how to roll maps. That's something I feel like is worth experimenting with and seeing what gives you the best results and like trying it out for yourself. But there are things that you basically will like something that people will never realistically like try out or think about, or also the just like things that are just inconvenient for no reason, like hybrid rolls on items not being separated. For me, it's just a thing it just makes it's just weird. Why just like just put a line there or like separate them from the other rolls? In my opinion, there's no real reason. Or like wording affix is better. Like increased physical damage. How many people think if a dagger has increased physical damage, their EK will do more damage?
Every single
new player thinks, hey, this is like increased spell damage, right? Just for physical. No, it's not. But it doesn't say increased physical damage with this weapon or local increased physical damage. It just adds 20 physical damage. To what? It could at least say to attacks.
And critical strike on the passive tree doesn't say global, which is the phrasing of local.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense.
So there's you see you open the passive tree and you see melee there's like one wheel of melee crit. So chances are you're going to read critical strike and spell critical strike. Well, unless you mouse over that one wheel of melee crit, you're going to assume by default that that is melee crit.
On the other end of the spectrum too, with like being spoon-fed things, something I think they used to add more uniques without explaining them, I think, or without saying they were in the game.
Yes.
Which is something I really like. I would just love patch notes one day to just say like something has been added to the game. Just don't explain it. It would be super cool because then you'll see posts going like, dude, I just got this item, and you get it linked everywhere, and there would be so much hype about it. I love mystery and stuff like that. Because my favorite part of the game, which I know a lot of people love as well, is the first day or the first 3 days. Like the first Essence I opened, I was like, this is amazing and stuff like that. Because I didn't really look at a lot of them. I didn't like look too much in depth on a lot of them. I wish I hadn't seen them at all.
Go
Yoji.
Okay. I intentionally did not spoil myself on all the map bosses because I wanted to get to know them as well. I think they could do that, but currently they use all the uniques. I think they use them for like hype generation and like spoiling the league. That's why they spoil all of them.
Well, Witchfire wasn't announced anywhere, was it? Because I can't remember seeing that.
Oh no, it wasn't announced, but it dropped real early on. I remember seeing it on the Reddit and like.
And the Shaper uniques as well wasn't announced.
Yeah, that was good, I feel.
Yeah, because I love stuff like that. I would just love the patch notes to just say things have been changed. And
when they didn't show the Shaper loot, I just remember the Reddit post when it was like Shaper first kill, and then wait, what? Because it was the Dying Sun flask.
Oh yeah.
I agree with you that like that mystery of not knowing, and unfortunately we live in a video game era with everything online. Data mining exists, and I think data mining does ruin a lot. And then you're put in a position where technically you could just not read it, but if you want to ladder push, if you want to help people with builds legitimately, if you want to make sure you're researched, you have to spoil yourself.
Yeah. I mean, how do we know what damage types all the Shaper attacks do?
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you didn't know what damage it was, how would you find out? It's like a lot of... I've done boss damage testing before. That's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
6 standard characters.
I would be so happy if the patch notes, like the skill balance changes, where skills were rebalanced. You don't know that Blade Vortex is good. you don't know that Valspark is like poor, and it's literally like, you know, then ladder pushing is different. It's not like, oh well, these things are.
But that's really bad for those people. Like, I recently read a Reddit post from someone who was like, he only has like very few like little playtime. He plays PoE every league, but he only gets like one character going. And what he does is he starts a character, picks up a build, and he usually tries to find a build that is guaranteed to work. And if it happens to not work, he will just play a little bit on standard and quit the league after he's done.
I get
And
that. Yeah.
for those people, it sucks. It's like, hey, I wanted to try Bladefall, but apparently this patch Bladefall got an 80% damage nerf. So he tries it out, feels it's shit, and quits. And that's not cool for those people.
But here's a thought: what if no skills were absolute shit? Not meta.
That's
But
not
no
gonna
shit.
realistically
Yeah,
gonna
yeah,
happen.
yeah.
Let's like discuss in real life, please.
God damn it!
But back to the whole like unknown things. Like I genuinely don't know if fishing's in the game right now, for example, which I think is really cool.
You had to. God damn it! Fucking hate you.
I love fishing. I think it's a really cool thing, and I think it's if it's not in the game, I think it's something they will just add without saying anything.
I hope they would do it. Wasn't there something with like this whole insanity thing that people like tried to figure out and didn't?
It's on the unique. It's the Innsbury Edge or whatever.
Yeah, it was like the Innsbury Edge, which is like a Lovecraft reference. But yeah.
Well, something I managed to
That was
do
interesting.
was
I think you muted yourself there, Ziz.
Yep.
Hello, Mr. Okay, yep. He's
can't talk
having
about
some
fishing.
yes. Did you really do that? Fuck you.
You would not be the first one to accidentally mute yourself on a podcast, so.
Minus 10 DKP.
Yep. I think we're done.
Yep. No,
Fuck this.
I don't care anymore.
Nope. Just check out PC Child.
Yeah.
That's
Wow.
Zizaran on Twitch. He does good jokes with muting his microphone and stuff.
PT hates me now.
He hates everyone. That is not special.